You're listening to the More Than the Music podcast, episode 54, featuring Lecrae.
I wasn't really living in my own skin. I was trying to please and impress Christian leaders and pastors and whatever. And it was like, I just need to be myself. And some of it comes from not having a father and wanting that pat on the back from a father figure. And it's not to say like being in my own skin means I don't want to affirm or uphold the things that they do, but it does mean that everyone's not a pastor, you know what I mean? And everyone's not a preacher, but at the end of the day, I did feel like I was called and led to be a light in dark rooms. And
Which means you actually have to go into the
dark rooms
to do it.
Right, exactly.
Right? You're about to hear why now more than ever, Lecrae feels like he's bringing hope to a dark world and redefining Christian music. What he feels will help us come together on racial inequality and injustice, why he describes 2016 as the worst year of his life, and how that led to the songs on his album All Things Work Together. I'm Justin Paul, along with Lecrae, and we're going to talk about a lot more than just the music.
More Than the Music is hosted by Justin Paul, a touring musician turned national radio personality who loves the dramatic, humorous, sometimes tragic, and often inspiring story behind the songs from your favorite artists. You can connect with the show at wayfm.com/Justin. Now here's your host, Justin Paul.
I am so thrilled to be joined on the More Than the Music podcast by Lecrae. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm wonderful. I'm in a great place right now.
It's going to be awesome. We're going to get to talk about the stories behind your new record. But man, before we jump into the music, let's go back to how it all started. I mean, we could probably spend the whole episode talking about how things got started for Lecrae. Yeah, how did it all begin for you, man? How did you get into the music thing?
Whoa, there's so many levels to that, I guess. From a professional standpoint, so to speak, I always loved music. I've been rapping since I was a little kid and, I was doing talent shows and everything else. But when I had graduated from college, I was doing a discipleship program, and it was like a 9-month intense learn the Bible. And one of the guys in that program was my current business partner, Ben Washer. And he worked at this sports camp called Kids Across America. He was a programs director, and he was responsible for finding the music. It was an inner city sports camp. So he was really intrigued with finding good hip hop music to like inspire these kids and help them to focus on their relationship with God and so on and so forth. And so we just became fast friends, and he saw me volunteering at a juvenile detention center, and I would rap for these kids every weekend. They didn't have like praise and worship or anything like that. They just had me rapping. Yeah. And so that became our introduction to saying, man, we should like really pursue this thing full time. And Reach Records was started, and we just pressed up CDs and mailed them to whoever would, hit the website. So it was really mom and pop and really organic and really just to get music in the hands of anybody who was interested.
You were born in Houston, but you kind of bounced around everywhere and then ended up in Atlanta. Yeah. Childhood for you was a little rough, right? But obviously you hear that in the music too. So it's even inspired you in songs.
Yeah, man. I'm a living inspiration for anybody who's come from, kind of a rough past, man. Just dysfunction, of course, abuse, didn't know my father, lots of just terrible decisions as a teenager. And, but yet, by the grace of God, was able to overcome a lot of those things and, go to college and, have a great mother who really did her best to invest in me, great grandmother and aunts who just really fought hard for me to become the me that I am today. Despite all of those obstacles that I went through, it all made me who I am.
And a praying mama and grandmama too, right?
Right, absolutely.
Right?
My grandmother was she's one of those matriarchs in the family,
She tried to drag you to church at first, right? But you weren't having it initially, right?
There was no choice. As like a younger kid, I could say no to going to church with her when she would go to church, but then she decided to start having a service on her patio on Monday nights when I think I was probably about 13, and I was like,
if you don't go to church, I'm gonna bring it to you, boy.
So I did my best to like stay gone on Mondays. I wouldn't linger around the house. As it started getting time for service, I tried to like make sure I wasn't out in the streets. Yeah.
But then you start going to this Bible study at 17, right? And that's really kind of where you got introduced to Jesus, right?
Yeah. So I went to a Bible study, and a lady was stressed out that I didn't know. I told she asked, "Are you saved?" I was like, "I don't even know what that means." So I was like, "No, I wasn't church to know. I don't even know what it means to be saved. Saved from what? Like something chasing me?" So I was like, "No," and she freaked out. But the way how freaked out she was made me question, like, well, what is this whole Christian thing? Like, why is she so paranoid? And I investigated, and I ended up going to a campus Bible study and just learning more and more, which eventually led to me going to a conference where I heard a clear gospel presentation, and man, gave my life to Jesus that night.
That's eventually where you met your wife too, right?
I did. Yeah, I met my wife there. We actually were students at school together, but we didn't know each other until we all kind of rallied around this Bible study and then went to this conference together. And so we just became fast friends. She was a cool person, and we just became friends really quick, man.
Yeah. And then what was this with this car accident? It was kind of like an epiphany moment, right? Where you nearly died. Like, it was pretty serious. Yeah,
so that was just all around a really tough year. I had been a believer and was walking with God, but at the same time, well, no, not walking with God. I've been a believer and had a season of walking with God, but then I just, had this gap of time where I just wasn't concerned about living for him. And everything was going bad. Lost my girlfriend, and I had lost my job, which, I was working at the grocery store, but still, it was all the money I had.
Right.
And then I was driving and tried to get over into a different lane too fast, and my car flipped over 3 times on the highway. It was like everything. The windshield was caved in. My glasses were like glued to the windshield under glass and like trapped in the cracks. And I should not be here. Like, literally, there's no reason why I'm here. The car was demolished and just hood caved in. But I got out of that car, man, with just a piece of glass stuck in my arm, and that's it.
That's amazing, bro.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And that's part of your testimony. Now, I saw you share a Facebook Live not too long ago sharing your testimony, man. That's powerful stuff.
Oh, man, it's crazy, man. God is good. That's a wake-up moment, and he's giving me a lot of them, man. And I'm really, that's the thing I want a lot of people to understand. It's like God definitely will give you, it's like Gideon. It's like Gideon was like, God, you can just show me, is it really real? Is it really, really real? But is it really, really, really real?
Yeah.
And, I think he's really faithful and gentle, obviously, doubting Thomas. And there's always people, like I was just reading about Philip and Nathaniel, and Nathaniel just believed right away, and God was like, oh, you're going to see greater things if you believe like that. But then there's always other people like, Gideon and Thomas and like myself who like need those consistent.
Took a little while.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so, but he's patient, man.
I also saw somewhere you said your first job, or one of your first jobs, was at Sonic.
Yeah.
And you just used the money to go to Ross and TJ Maxx.
Ross and TJ Maxx.
Which I was at TJ Maxx just before this interview.
Oh, man.
Like, that's my jam, man.
Is it
like,
really?
My wife, what's funny is I love going there more than my wife.
Oh, man.
I just love the deal. I love the pursuit of the deal, man. You go to a clearance rack, and when you find some Ralph Lauren jeans on the clearance rack at TJ Maxx, it's like
that
heaven,
was my
man.
thing. I was able to look fly for nothing. You know what I mean? Like, that was my thing. That's back when like Izod was like the thing, the shirt. And I was wearing those, and yeah, man.
TJ Maxx got a nice selection of Izods, man.
Man, I'm telling you. So everything but the shoes. I would get everything but the shoes. So
TJ Maxx doesn't have many shoes. I don't think I've ever seen any guys' shoes in TJ Maxx.
Nah, I don't think you. Yeah,
and you get them at Ross though.
Ross actually, Ross has stepped the shoe game up a little bit. Stepped the shoe game up. Yeah, man, that was my claim to fame.
Now, I just heard recently you started eating fruits and vegetables. Like, what's up with this?
It was crazy. Like,
you did not eat fruits and vegetables until recently.
Listen.
Blows my mind.
I still, to this day, have never eaten a salad. So
For real?
Never in my life, I've never eaten a salad. Andy Mineo, a good friend and artist, gave me an apple in 2015 for the first time. So
it's so funny that you remember the day you had an
my
apple.
first apple. So and not too long ago, contrary to every stereotype and popular belief, I just had my first bite of watermelon. So yeah, man. So
I grew up in Georgia, okay? Like, watermelons are pretty prominent in Georgia.
I mean, you
spent a lot of your life in Georgia, but
yeah, I grew up on pizza and chicken nuggets, man. So and I was a latchkey kid, so I was always making my own food, and it never included fruits and vegetables. So, and then I became stubborn. I became the person who's like, well, I haven't done it this long, so why am I going to start today? You know, it's like the person that has never been bowling, so he's like, I'm not going to.
Not going?
I've never done it, and I'm not.
You don't plan on eating a salad either.
Nah, I don't.
You don't plan on.
I don't. It's like, why? For what? I made it this
been
far.
this far. Why not?
You can drink salad in 2017. You can drink it. I'll just drink a salad.
What do you mean?
Like you know, like green juice or like, you know what I mean? Like, I just drink it.
It never tastes the same. You put in a juice, you wouldn't know. It doesn't taste the same. To me, it's better to have real it's not lot, but real salad.
Yeah, man. I just can't do it. I probably would hate every minute of it.
Don't give Lecrae a salad.
Won't be.
Dude, I remember when your first record came out.
Yeah.
But things have come a long way since that, man. Like starting Reach Records, co-founding your own record label.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind that? And man, just the journey that music has brought you on up to that point.
I've always admired label owners and people like Diddy and Russell Simmons. And so I like sitting in the executive seat and being a visionary and coming up with ideas and seeing like ideas come to fruition. Like I'm a student and I've always been a student. So I was the kid in high school who used to write out his business plan. Like it probably wasn't good, but it was like, yo, these are my dreams. I'm gonna do this and then we're gonna do this. And then the way it gets fleshed out in my in your little mind at the time is like, I'm gonna have a barbershop with a massage place inside and then a restaurant, and I'm not thinking about sanitary conditions. I'm just
no salads at that restaurant.
No salad, unless, you know, the demand is high. But so that was it was just fun to create something. And we didn't have any industry contacts, so we didn't know anybody at Sony or anything like that. So it was just, everything was done mom and pop style, you know, and I really do give credit to God for taking nothing and making something out of it, because we really didn't know what we were doing. We didn't even have a barcode on that first CD. You know, it was just, we had to learn everything, but it was a journey, and we really have gotten to create some incredible things from that.
Was it through that 116 was born, or were you guys already together and then Reach Records happened? Yeah,
so 116, it's really a strange phenomenon, but just this little town in Texas, Denton, Texas. And my good friend of mine, Dahadi Lewis, he started this campus ministry called Plumline, and we were all a part of it. And there was some of us in that campus ministry, you know, predominantly African-American, but there was a little group of us who thought we were a little more edgier than everybody else. You know, like most of these are college kids, and we're the kids who barely made it to college. Yeah, we're the cool. And so we just wanted to kind of create our own thing within that campus ministry. You know, what we wanted to do was be the outreach to the cool kids. You know, it was kind of like, man, you know, who's reaching the fraternities and the sororities, and who's throwing cool parties? Like, they got parties, where's our parties? You know, and it was kind of that like counterculture mindset. And that's what 116 was birthed out of. We went to a retreat, and the speaker wrote Romans 1:16 inside of my Bible, and I saw that and I looked it up, and I was like, oh snap, unashamed of the gospel, that's gonna be us, like 116 click. We don't say click anymore because that's passe, but it just was our movement. So it was more organic, and then those are the guys that got on record with me to make the music.
And it's been cool to see guys like Andy Mineo and Gavi and all those dudes at Reach Records just raise up and take this thing to a next level, right?
It's crazy because they're their own people, and they have their own identities. When I look at people like, you know, Jimmy Iovine, who found Dr. Dre, and Trent Reznor and will.i.am, he surrounded himself with producers who knew how to create something else, not just artists. And I think that's the thing is, Andy Mineo is not just an artist, he's a mind that has ideas about this and that, and he's a creator. And Gavi's a creator. And so they can make songs, but they can also create atmospheres and like ecosystems and that don't need Lecrae to survive and do their own thing. And that's what I really get a kick out of, is kind of like putting a battery in someone's back and seeing it just kind of take off and become its own thing.
I saw Andy Mineo on Winter Jam, man, and when he came out, that arena just lit up. And I mean, there were powerhouses on that tour, Crowder and 10th Avenue North and Brittany Cole, but man, I guess I should have expected it, but when he hit the stage, it was like, dude, this guy's for real.
Yeah, man. And we've never been about having the most advertisement or being the biggest names in Nashville or anything along those lines. You know, we've really been about the people and connecting with the people connecting with our fans, our supporters. It's like family, and that's really been our biggest thing. Is that's where maybe the industry is kind of like, wait, where did this come from? But the fans aren't. They're like, we've been known about this, you know. And so that's the cool thing for us is we just get to connect with our supporters on a more intimate basis.
Now, this new record is a partnership with Columbia.
Yeah.
What's that been like? Is it like adding another boss in there? Like,
No. We have a lot of autonomy. I mean, really, we have full autonomy.
Yeah.
It's just that for me, my mission, I'm more of a barrier breaker and a missionary and a culture maker. And so for me, it's wanting to infiltrate culture and wanting to have conversations that no one's having and talk about things that people may be talking about, but I may have a unique perspective. And it's just wanting to be in those environments, in those rooms. And quite honestly, it's like, that's a lot of work for a couple Christian guys out of Denton, Texas to start cultivating, you know what I mean? And so you start thinking of someone you can bring on board to walk you in a different room and say, hey, this is our friend Lecrae. He has something to say about this.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to is, there's just unique opportunities. And then also it's just some stuff we just don't want to spin our wheels on, as an independent record label, as a group of guys who that's just not what we're not interested really in starting a radio promotions campaign and team. You guys already do that. That's great. How about this? We'll create some sauce inside of our Reach Record Studios and we'll let you guys do the radio stuff because that's really just not our wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And that's really a lot of what's going on.
Man, I love what you said, being a barrier breaker. You're not a fan of labels, even though people try to throw them on you all the time. You're not a fan of that. But sometimes people have a problem when something doesn't have a label.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Bro, I was on your Facebook page, and you've been very open that I'm not going to be exclusively this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be me.
Yeah.
And dude, you got there's some haters who just have a problem with that. And I don't understand why people have a problem with going and reaching the world the way you do.
And that's why I wrote a book. I wrote a book called Unashamed to kind of walk people through that. Some of that is my fault from the sense of like, I created 10 years ago some very rowdy pockets of culture where it was kind of like, hey man, this is what we're about and this is where we stand, and you grow, and in 10 years time, I've grown to realize, okay, I wasn't really living in my own skin. I was trying to please and impress Christian leaders and pastors and whatever. And it was like, this isn't me living in my own skin. I just need to be myself. And some of it comes from not having a father and wanting that pat on the back from a father figure. And it's not to say like being in my own skin means I don't want to affirm or uphold the things that they do, but it does mean that everyone's not a pastor, you know what I mean? And everyone's not a preacher, but at the end of the day, I did feel like I was called and led to be a light in dark rooms. And
which means you actually have to go into the
dark rooms
to do it.
Right, exactly.
Right?
And some people would say, well, your light's not shining as bright as it used to, right? Like, oh, you're not talking about all these in-depth things. Really, what I'm not doing is speaking Christianese in some senses. But the light, what I think a lot of people don't realize is that, like, when you compare a flashlight to the light of the sun, of course it looks very dim, right? And that's what they're saying is you were shining brighter than the sun. And now you're bright as a flashlight. But when you take a flashlight into a closet, it's bright.
Put it in context.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I'm taking this flashlight into a closet and it is shining, you know what I mean? Whereas turn it up too bright and it's almost as if people can't comprehend. They don't know what are you talking about, or they feel like it's not for them. And so it's been a dance, but it's been a wonderful one. And I feel free and I feel comfortable and I feel, I'm always challenged, but I definitely feel like I'm walking in my own shoes and being who God made me to be.
I feel like if you have to wear a t-shirt in big bold letters that says Jesus for somebody to know you're a Christian, then are you really?
Absolutely.
Shouldn't people be able to look at your life, look at your product, look at your music and go, there's something different about Lecrae?
Look at your love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do they know us by our love for one another and for the world? And that's what I'm really about it's not, and it's the thing is, it's not as if the industry doesn't know I'm a Christian. They know that, so it's not like I'm not hiding that. You know what I mean? Everyone knows. Oh yeah, Lecrae, the Christian guy.
And it's not like you just all of a sudden have stopped talking about Jesus.
No.
Because look, I want to read you a Facebook post. You made this post, right?
Yeah.
And I was reading some of the comments, just shaking my head. Here's the post. When you're tired of looking for earthly solutions to your spiritual/emotional problems, come to God. There is more freedom in confessing our weaknesses than pretending we have it all together.
Yeah.
Comments on that were like, "Oh man, we praying for you, Lecrae, to come back." Oh man, yeah, I don't know why you did that. Like,
it,
what?
though. I get it.
Come on.
I get it because I realize I'm an anomaly and people haven't seen it before. And some of it's fear. Some of it's like, we've never seen one of our own go over there and come back. You know, it's like the Bermuda Triangle. You know what I mean? So in their mind, they're like, there's no way possible. That's why people say you're in the Illuminati, because they don't have any categories for someone who can exist in that space and not be sincere about their faith. And I think I understand it. And some of it has to do with, sometimes we put our convictions on other people or our struggles on other people. And I've been guilty of that. I remember my buddy Tadashi, we were in San Diego, and the tour bus was going to be in San Diego for a couple of days. And Tadashi said, man, I'm going to rent a car and drive to LA to go visit some friends and family. And at the time, I thought that was just the most you can't rent a car and drive to LA by yourself. You're gonna get the cooties. You could get in all kind of stuff. Like, that's LA, bro.
That's where sin is.
Yeah.
Man.
So I just was like, but really what I was saying was, I can't drive to LA without getting into something.
Yeah.
And I put my struggles and convictions on him, because I would never do that, because if I did do that, I would have, at that stage in my life, gotten into some trouble.
Yeah.
But he was like, bro, that's not my struggle. Please don't put your convictions on me. It was like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. They're saying, Lecrae, I couldn't handle lights, camera, action, Hollywood, standing out with all these people without being corrupted and sacrificing a part of who I am. But I'm 15 years into this thing. My struggles are way different at this stage in my life than they are for a 22-year-old kid who's navigating those worlds.
Go to Lecrae's Facebook page. Read the encouragement he posts. Read words like God and Jesus on his Facebook page. And I think you'll find out real quick who Lecrae is.
Yeah, man. I might just say Jesus 7 times tomorrow for everybody.
Just to make sure.
Just to make sure you guys know.
So many times we get hung up on stuff, and we allow stuff to define our faith.
And I think if we're honest, none of us would want to be defined by what we do when the lights are off. None of us want to be defined by what we do when we're not focused on God. None of us would want to be defined by our web browser history.
Ooh,
you know what I mean? And so
now.
We are not the standard. We need to give grace to other people, because we all have the dark corners in our lives that, you know, if the light were shined on them, people would say, oh my gosh. And that's just because that's the nature of humanity. It's not, you know, there's not a perfect person out there. If there was, then we wouldn't need Jesus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you exist out there, then you should have died on the cross instead of Jesus. But that's just the reality. Yeah, absolutely.
Before we get into this record, I think it kind of has to be prefaced with 2016 was a pretty rough year for you.
Yeah.
A lot of things happened, man. Now your close friend DJ Official passes away.
Yep.
Like, this was more than like your DJ, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This dude was more than somebody just on stage with you.
Yeah, my friend since, my gosh, 2005, 2006. So that was very, 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 very tough. I mean, that was, you know, I don't grieve well. So, you know, I'm not a person who understands how to grieve well. I don't come from that kind of a functional background where we, you know, wrestled and processed through that and talked about it. So I didn't have the tools to handle it, you know, in a healthy way. So I would bury it and it would come out in other ways, you know what I mean? And it just wasn't healthy for me, but that was very painful.
There were a lot of things socially that happened in 2016 that you spoke out on.
Absolutely.
That you said some stuff about, and not everybody agreed with you.
Yeah.
And that kind of hurt, right? Like, that was a tough spot.
It was. I mean, because I think, you know, when we start talking about social and civil rights, and issues along those lines, Christians are very, the evangelical church is very adamant about addressing those issues when they're overseas. But when they're in our own backyard, we tend to get protective and defensive. And so that was my struggle was, hey, the same thing that I'm seeing in Qatar, which is injustice, I'm seeing in America. And people would say that's me being divisive, but I'm just speaking about the division that already exists. You know, it wasn't as if like everyone was holding hands and happy. There's been racial tension in this country for hundreds of years. And so this was just evidence of it. And if anything, I think I was hurt at the reality that the church of all people was silent in a lot of ways and was not empathetic and did not raise a voice. And not to say everybody, because there definitely were some champions and allies in that, but there was still a lot of quietness. There was a lot of scrutiny. I think that was probably one of the most slanderous times I've experienced. Yeah. You know, I received threats, letters to my house, and all kinds of stuff. And so that was tough. You know, that was really, really tough. But in the end, I think God just used it tremendously to help me realize who I am in Him and how I think a lot of times we feel like we have to be defined by these categories that have been given to us instead of saying, no, I'm who God says I am. You know, a lot of times we say, well, are you conservative or liberal, or are you Democrat or Republican? And it's like, you know, those are the only categories that we've been given. Yeah. And that does not encompass the fullness and the complexity of a human being. Like calling me a conservative does not give dignity to the full robustness of who I am. Calling me a liberal does not give dignity to the fullness and complexity of how I feel about so many things. And I think that's what God revealed to me in the middle of all that.
I think when you see injustice, when you see oppression, the church should say something. We have to be united on that front in our faith, that we have to speak out against these things. Sure. The only problem is, I don't think the church collectively agrees on what is injustice and what is oppression. Absolutely. I can understand part of what you go through because you tell me. Right. But I can't fully because I haven't lived it. Exactly. And that's where I think the rub comes. Yep.
But that's why we have to listen to each other. Right. Right? Because I get it. You're looking at the news and seeing isolated cases, and we're looking at a narrative that mirrors our lives, our mother's lives, our father's lives, our grandfather's lives, and we're seeing this narrative continually play in an endless loop. And for people outside of that community, it's an isolated situation that's completely unrelated to the next one and the next one and the next one.
But not if you're in it every day.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's the issue. And then people begin to say that because you're speaking out against it and there just so happens to be someone else who's speaking out against it whose narrative or whose beliefs don't line up with yours, now you guys are in total agreement, right? Yeah. And I think that becomes scary too when we start doing that to each other. It's almost like if I believe that you should save the whales and Marilyn Manson believes you should save the whales and we both are saying save the whales, now all of a sudden, you know, you're accusing Marilyn Manson of being a Christian or you're accusing me of being whatever Marilyn Manson says that he is. And it's like, that's not the case.
Yeah. So I think we have to be, as a church, as a faith, we have to be vocal on what's happening in our culture. And I know this is sticky, but I believe we have to get to a point where we can actually genuinely talk about politics and how our faith intersects that without everybody starting an argument. you know, like, I think we have to go back to love your brother, love your neighbor as yourself. If we don't start there, we're going to let stuff like this divide us every single day.
Right. And I think it will. I think every generation, there are people who learn from it. It doesn't paint it as a whole. I don't know if it'll ever end. I don't know if there'll ever be an end to that narrative of dissonance and tension. Just like Jesus said, the poor will always be among us. And then the Bible talks about in the last days there'll be wars and rumors of war. So we know there's going to be tension if there's going to be war, right? It's not so much for me a battle for a utopian world, but it's a battle for ideals that God promotes. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And that's what I'm pushing for. And I don't know who will jump on that bandwagon, but hopefully more of us do, and less of us have tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And during 2016, you've been honest about, man, you kind of went through a brief depression.
Oh, yeah.
Just from seeing all this stuff and the way people were reacting. But you get to this album, and how did that influence this new record?
Big time. 2016 is hands down the worst year of my life. I mean, I've been in car accidents. I've been in a rehabilitation center. This was bad because on all fronts, just an all-out assault on my faith, an all-out assault on my emotional health, all-out assault on family and just views and everything. And so, it drove me into a dark place emotionally. And so I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote, and I started in the dark, and I wrote in the middle of the darkness, and I wrote as God was reaching down and pulling me out, and I wrote when he pulled me out of that dark place. And so you end up, this is why the album took so long to finish, because you end up seeing that full picture of someone who's in the worst place ever, where you hear on Can't Stop Me Now, for instance, and then yet God is saying, hey, I'm grabbing you, I'm with you, I'm pulling you out. What you hear on I'll Find You. And then I'm reflecting on, man, he's good, and every day is good, and I'm grateful that I know him despite everything going on in my life, which you hear on the Blessings, you know what I mean? And it's just like, it can come full circle where it's like, hey man, you're hearing the whole narrative of somebody's experience, and this is just 1 year of my life. You know what I mean? So that's what you're getting.
So tell depression they can fly away, tell my doubts that they can die today. I'ma catch me a wave, sail away, can't stop me now. Tell depression they can fly away, tell my doubts that they can die today. I'ma catch me a wave, sail away, can't stop me now. All those feelings of depression and doubt, you gotta tell them go away. You gotta say get out the way, and let them know, hey, you can't stop me now. Hey. Then you throw up both hands, wave by, and then you sail away.
Well, let's start with that song "Blessings," featuring Ty Dolla $ign. How did you know you wanted to collab with him and make? I mean, such an uplifting song. It's interesting to hear like the roughest year of your life, but then one of the first songs we hear from the new record is "Blessings," right?
Yeah. Well, I think we had gotten to a place where I was able to say he's still good, right? So "Blessings," I went to visit somebody in Angola prison in Louisiana, and this person was on death row. And they've since gone on and passed on. But when I went to visit him, he wasn't sad. He wasn't depressed. He was grateful. He was grateful that I came to see him. He was grateful that he woke up that morning. He was grateful that his family loved him. He was grateful that he knew where he was going to spend his eternity. Wow. And it challenged me to say, how can I complain about anything when I walk out this building, right? Like before I complain today, let me be grateful I have breath to complain with, because this man is grateful and I'm not. That's ridiculous. So "Blessings" was me expressing that. And it's not me saying it in a profoundly deep way. It's me communicating in a very surface level, general conversation way, so that the average person who just comes into contact with it can feel that. You know, it's not like weighty, or it's not this rich, thing you got to plow through to get to that thing, and you stare. It's just like a ray of sunshine. Bow, just hits you, and that's what "Blessings" is.
Why Ty Dolla $ign on this one? Why'd you feel like he had to be on this song?
Well, the thing about Ty, I'm a big fan of Ty Dolla $ign, and he's a mutual fan of my music. And I think, one, I appreciated the fact that Ty was so multifaceted. He's a musician. He can play every instrument except the brass. He can sing. He can write. He can do all these things. But he wrote a song on his album called "Miracles" that just touched me. And it was featuring his brother, TC, who's in prison. So his brother actually recorded his verse on the phone in prison, and you just heard, again, it reminded me of that hope of that, like, man, this man is still hopeful, you know, and saying, man, I'm just, you know, it's a miracle. And it touched me, man. And that let me see a different side of Ty, and man, and just wanting to say, man, you're appreciative. And, you know, when we start talking about blessings, obviously, you know, we can get theological and say, you know, when God is talking about blessings, it's not this common grace, but that's what I'm talking about. It's more common grace, just the small things, right? Like that everybody gets to appreciate. And that's what I thought. I said, man, Ty, let's work. And it worked out beautifully.
I kind of had that moment too, talking about the prison, talking about what Ty had been through. And we went to Africa with Compassion International, the first time I'd ever gone like out of the country to see how other people, you know, live. Mm-hmm. And we're sitting there in this little block church, dirt floor, hardly a roof. And I'm just like, these people are so happy. Mm-hmm. But I get to go back home to my nice house with AC and hardwood floors.
Right.
And I think that's rough sometimes.
Right. You complain.
You know?
AC's out. Ugh.
Right? Ugh. Because all those people had to cling to was their faith, their hope in Jesus. Sometimes they didn't know where the meal was coming from the next day, but they were happy.
Absolutely.
Part of that's in this song, maybe not that theologically deep, but just recognizing the blessings around us.
Absolutely.
Every day, the little things.
Yep. And it's a song that was a top 10 song on urban radio, which was definitely the target audience for the music, because there's so much in that community, in the urban community, that I wanted them to hear and appreciate. And it's small things that the average ear may overlook, but it's a message that the community can relate to and can hear. Little things like, you know, eating fried bologna. You know, that was a staple in the hood. You know, it's just like, that's what I ate every day, eating fried bologna. And then just to say, like, bought a car, cash money. I didn't say what kind of car it was. But what I'm also teaching, that what people may not be comprehending, is getting out of debt. Yeah. You know, that's just a small lesson. Like, that's a good thing to not be in debt. That's a great thing. Like, and just to be able to say, man, God, like, you put me in a position where, I mean, most of the people that I know, that I grew up with, will never have that narrative to be able to say, man, my car's paid off. You know what I'm saying? And so just little things like that I just wanted to say, man, listen, man, just thank God for every little thing, because you don't know. It's almost like somebody saying, like, AC blowing, and you may think, what is AC blowing? My AC blows too. But to that kid in Africa, he's like, whew, AC blowing. Yeah. You know what I mean? It means something to him.
I remember pushing mama little white Hyundai with no gas money. I just bought a car, cash money. I ain't even trying to brag on it. I just tell it how it really is. I ain't tripping, they ain't feeling this. I ain't saying I deserve nothing. I'm just trying to talk about the benefits. I've been punching in the clock, trying to keep the kitchen stocked. Man, it's a blessing, cause we ain't never had a lot. But all we need is all we got. Whew.
If I ever took a loss, I learned a lesson. I won't ever think I'm better than the next man. I've been down before to come up, I ain't stressing. Baby, I'm too busy counting all these blessings. Count it up, count it up, count it up.
Does it feel weird, people calling you like on the Verge or breakout artist, and you're like, man, this is like my 8th record.
Yeah.
Does that feel weird at all? Even though it's a new arena?
Yeah. I mean, that's what you have to remind yourself of. And it keeps you humble. Yeah. You know, because a lot of people will say, oh, you know, it's fame or it's money or whatever. No. Because you don't leave the NBA and go to the NFL and get a better deal. Yeah. Like, Tim Tebow's not doing baseball for the money or the fame. He's doing it because he cares and loves baseball and wants to do well in that arena. And so I think that's how people have to view it. It's one does not transfer into the other. And so that keeps you humble. You know, it's going to make me work harder to love people, to meet more people, to shake more hands, to sign more autographs, to have more conversations, to be grounded and down to earth. And I wanted that. I wanted a sense of like not being heralded and not being the man. And, you know, when you walk into the building and it's like the red carpet rolled out. Now that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? So now it's like, who's a tall dude? And you need that, man. It's just healthy for you. It's like a long-term mission trip is what it feels like.
Yeah. Man, this song with Tori Kelly, first of all, I love Tori Kelly.
Oh, man,
like, I think she's one of the best pop vocalists right now out. She might be the best.
Yeah.
She's on this song, I'll Find You, which with DJ Official passing away, there were, you know, he died of cancer. And there's a lot of hope and a lot of strength in this song with her.
Yeah, that's it. Ooh, let me. I have to sometimes gather myself to get through it, but so I wanted to encourage my buddy and write something for him as he was going through everything he was going through. I had gotten with Frank E., the producer, who also has a family member battling cancer, and he wanted to make something that was life-altering, you know what I mean, and game-changing. And he had recently done the song with Charlie Puth and Wiz Khalifa. You know, he'd seen the impact that a song can make on people's lives, and so he's like, I need to do this consistently, and I feel like God put us together to do that. That's what how he articulated it. And then before the song could be released, Fish passed away, which was hard. And so I changed the lyrics, and then I changed them again. And then I came out on the other side of it all a little bit better, a little more hopeful. And I changed them again. And then Tori came along and the chorus changed because it wasn't always what it was. And different things were added, and it became more an anthem of hope and more an anthem of like, not just, you know, you can do it, but really like, man, there really is hope in the chaos. Yeah. And I want people to believe that.
There's a line in the song, man, exemplifies exactly what you just said. It's like, I've been looking for a way out, but I'll settle for a
peace of mind.
Dude, isn't that how most situations in our life are?
Yep.
Eventually, when you stop looking for the way out, you just want the peace.
Yes.
And then you figure out the whole time that there was a purpose, there was a plan, God was with you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen that even with this scenario with DJ Official passing away, but I believe that there is a plan and a purpose, and God will use that to bring somebody else hope.
Yeah.
Even through this song. Maybe it's already happening with this song.
Oh my gosh. The stories are endless. One of my favorite stories is that we were just taking a song around at different radio stations and letting them hear some new music. And we were in Boston, and the radio personalities couldn't make it through the song, just crying uncontrollably. And I was like, oh, well, wow, God, this is an impactful song, you know. But then later she said, you know, I'm a cancer survivor. And this song reminds me of the fight and having to hope and to be on the other side of it, and just how grateful I am to have survived that. And things like that, man, just, you know, it rocks me. And they probably won't want me to say this, but just even the Columbia executives, like a lot of people don't know, man, that's another unique opportunity that we're getting. Like people who are making decisions about Adele and Beyonce are sitting in a room watching this and in tears and grateful and telling people, we're so glad we get to work with this label, Reach Records, and the impact that they're having. And so, man, again, thankful to my team too, who are just amazing at Reach Records and Columbia. You know,
which still again blows my mind why some people can't get on board with that.
Oh man, do
you see the opportunity Lecrae has right now?
It's phenomenal.
Huge.
God definitely draws straight lines with crooked sticks, and I am the evidence.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm watching it happen right before my eyes.
They don't understand what I'm going through. The world trying to play with my soul. I'm just trying to find where to go. I'm trying to remember the way. I'm trying to get back to my home, but I can't do this on my own. That's why I'm just trusting in you, cause I don't know where else to go, and I don't know what else to do.
Just fight a little longer, my friend. It's all worth it in the end. But when you got nobody to turn to, just hold on and I'll find you. Just fight a little longer, my friend. It's all worth it in the end.
On your website, you said, this new record, I'm taking liberties. What does that mean exactly?
Well, some of it is like, I'm free to write a song about relationships, or I'm free to write a song about any aspect of life, right? Because candidly, when people say, do you do Christian music? I understand what they're saying, but I don't think if we really drill it down, we know what that means, right? So what does that really mean? And I'm saying, I'm going to push back on what you're saying when you say that, because you really haven't put much thought into what you mean when you say that. Like, we know generally what it means, but like, what makes it Christian music? Is it the music talks about Jesus? But what if a non-believer makes a song talking about Jesus? Is it Christian music?
Yeah.
Right? Does the person making it have to be a Christian? Because we've seen lots of people come out and say, I was never a Christian, but I was just making this music.
Right.
So were they making Christian music? Right? But what if a Christian talks about regular life in a very truthful way and stays true to their convictions and is not trying to violate the scriptures in any kind of way? Is that not Christian music? Is music written by a Christian? And so for me, I'm saying, man, I'm going to push back on that. And I am a Christian. And I am trying to function through a worldview that honors God, and I'm going to write music from that. And
if that's within you, it's going to come out of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love my job. I've been in Christian radio most of my career.
Yeah.
But I hope if I ever have the chance, maybe I will, maybe I won't, to do something at a mainstream radio station.
Sure.
That's not going to define my faith.
Absolutely not.
My faith is still going to come out because my faith is in Jesus, not in my job.
Absolutely. Well, that's a retweet. My faith is in Jesus, not my job.
Right.
Man.
And I think, man, that's kind of sometimes in this so-called Christian culture, we get it a little messed up.
Yeah.
That we look at what people do, and okay, there are some circumstances where I guess you could say, well, because they do that, that means something's not in their heart, something's, but generally speaking, I don't think you can always do that.
Absolutely. I just think ministry's where your feet are at. You know what I mean? Where are my feet? There's my ministry, right? Like that's just what it is. And really ministry just means serving. We've just added so many definitions. That's the thing. We don't realize how pharisaical we are. Pharisees, all they did was add rules to the rules, right? It's like, no, not just rest on the Sabbath. Don't cast a shadow on the Sabbath. It doesn't say that. He never said don't cast a shadow. You know what I mean? Hey, Adam, don't eat the fruit of the tree. He said don't eat or touch. He never said don't touch. He said don't eat.
Yeah.
And we're really good for that. And so we'll say, hey, if you love Jesus, you cannot make songs that aren't talking about him if you say you're a Christian artist. Or you love Jesus, you can't make songs with people who don't love Jesus. Well, why not?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, I get it if we're saying, let's make a worship song. You know, let's go make a worship song. Well, one person's clearly probably not worshiping Jesus if they don't know him. But if we're making songs about normal things in life and just giving perspective on it, you know, I did a song with Big Crit on Gravity years ago where he gave his perspective on faith and then I gave mine. And it was like a dialogue. And it was so great because people could resonate with what he said, but then they could also hear my response to what he said. And it was like, this is beautiful. This is a conversation that people need to hear constantly.
On a lighter note, I guess, not that we were like in a tense moment or anything. That was probably a bad segue, but what happened at the Super Bowl with my Falcons, man?
That's not a lighter note. That's a terrible.
I know it's not like
that's
a lighter
terrible.
note, but you were there. I figured you would have done something.
Now you're bringing up wounds,
I figured you would have done something. You were there.
Wounds.
Didn't you get to go back there and hang out with them? You should have given them a pep talk, man.
We prayed for them but you know, God is no respecter of persons. So,
at what point did you go back there and pray for them?
It was before the game.
Oh, thank goodness it wasn't halftime, because then I was going to put it all on you.
Yeah. I wanted that for Atlanta. I think Atlanta, you know, it's been a beautiful city. Team hadn't been there in 20 years. That would have been great.
Growing up in Georgia, I'm an Atlanta everything fan, man.
Oh,
and
yeah. So that's how my wife is. My wife is an Atlanta everything fan, but she's a fanatic, not a fan. She listens to 92.9 like every day, sports radio like Braves, Falcons,
love the Braves.
Hawks, United.
Okay, she's going in the side. I don't go that far. I don't go that far.
So she was just asking me the other day. She said, what's your schedule looking like? Because I'm trying to go to watch the Falcons. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what a lot of men are probably like, man, you got a good one. I do. But
you got to keep her, man.
I'm telling you, it's crazy.
Yeah, how are the kids? I mean, you do kind of have this thing. You don't really post about them much on social media. I have to ask because I don't really know.
I actually stopped putting a lot of my family on social media for a lot of reasons. One primarily is because my kids are getting older with personalities of their own, with friends of their own, with identities of their own. And I don't want them to have to carry the weight of daddy's public persona on their shoulders. I don't want them to have to deal with that. I don't want strangers to walk up to them and say, "Oh, you're Lecrae's kid. Can I get a picture?" Or, I just want them to be able to say, I have my own identity and it has nothing to do with my dad's career or anything along those lines. And so that's why I've just chosen to, that my oldest son really is one that got me to thinking about it, because I was taking a picture of him one day and he said, "Dad, can you please not post that on social media?" And I was like, "Oh, wow." He's like, "Yeah, I just don't like that." And my friends and I was like, I just, you have your own life and you have your own world and you have your own, you're right. You're absolutely right. So I have a private Facebook for like family and stuff like that. And when I want to share those cool moments and all that type of stuff with the people who know him and really love him and want to, then I post stuff there.
Well, I hope they're doing well, man.
They're all doing great.
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk about these songs and life. And man, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for doing this, man.
No, it's a pleasure, man. This is good. Good stuff.
Thanks for listening to the More Than the Music podcast, episode 54, featuring Lecrae. If you've made it this far, I'm going to guess you love the show. So would you consider sharing it with your friends on social media? Any Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter share only helps more people hear the amazing stories behind these songs. I also love hearing from you, too. You're welcome to email me anytime at justin@wayfm.com or just leave me a 5-star rating and review inside iTunes. Hubdeck left me this 5-star review and said, "I am so glad my daughter recommended it. Great artist interviews, thoughtful questions, and well produced. A 40-plus minute interview seemed like 10 minutes. Excited to listen to more." Thank you so much for your 5-star rating and review. To find out more about the show, find links to my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and to even have a chance to win a copy of Lecrae's All Things Work Together that was featured in this episode, just go to wayfm.com/Justin.